March the 4th. Goodness gracious. Scott Bounds is in the house. Good morning, Scott. How are you, sir?
Good morning,
Mr. Chairman, everything okay?
Yeah, good morning.
Jeez, we sit here talking and we forget that we're going to be on the air, just so we have to talk on the air.
That's right.
You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
You're looking good. You're looking good.
Well, thank you, sir.
You are a poster boy of losing weight and keeping it off.
Well, I appreciate that.
I need you to get in that mic a little bit. Turn it this way. See, that's what happens, Perez, when I just don't do the pre-show stuff here. All right, where do we start? I want to talk about 1231. We were just mentioning that a few seconds ago, HB 1231. It was gutted. I mean, I guess you could use that term by the Senate, moved back over to the House. And tell me exactly, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, so obviously we were able to get past the triple referral bomb that was dropped on it for it to be triple referred, and got it out.
Did that surprise you?
It definitely surprised me. In my time here in the legislature, I've seen that on just a few occasions. But that's the.
Can we talk politics for a second here, just because you've been in the politics for a long time?
Okay.
If you have someone who triple refers something and it's doesn't achieve its objective, does that weaken that person? Does that does that make the authority for that person weaken a little bit, or is it because when the lieutenant governor decided to triple refer it, it was for one reason, and I would think it is to kill it.
Well, so in our industry, in the legislative industry, Paul, triple referral of a bill is an intent to kill the bill.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a bill, which very few bills that have been triple referred, not be killed, not make it through the process. So, let me say this. I had 1231 came about. It wasn't something that we just decided in the fall we were going to do. Okay, we've been working on this. I've been working on this bill since the fall of 2018, okay, 2.5 years. And, past the House, 117 to 2, we goes to the Senate, and it's triple referred. I'm just scratching my head. I'm going, 117 to 2, you've got every NGO, conservationists across the state, and we're all scratching our heads on the triple referral, on how that happened. So, in regard to your question, I think you've got to look at, as a leader, whether it's the lieutenant governor, speaker, or whatever, if you intend to kill the bill, just kill the bill. Just kill the bill. Just tell us what the problems are and kill the bill. But, I will say, to his credit, he got the bill out, and we've got it alive. It's still alive, but it's been gutted substantially from what the intent of the bill is.
Has it been gutted to the point where you don't want to pass it?
Well, I will tell you that the version that the Senate has, we don't have it. We cannot live with that version.
Okay, so in other words, that version, it's got to change in conference.
It's got to change in conference, Paul.
What do you want to put back in there?
Well, first of all, so what we had, we had a diversion. We had a diversion from the sales tax collected on sporting goods.
Let me explain that to the people. Explain it to them what we're talking about.
So diversion is when you go out and buy a shotgun, or you buy a kayak, or you buy a pair of binoculars or whatever, you pay sales tax on it. Okay,
7%.
7%. That's right. So that category, sporting goods, and it's several hundred items that fall under the sporting goods.
Anything coded under that?
Anything uncoded in NAISC code. Several hundred items. Okay. But anyway, the Department of Revenue and our research in preparing all of our data for this bill, to bring this bill out, tells us it's approximately $30 million a year is collected in Mississippi total on sporting goods sales tax, okay? So what we were looking to do was a diversion from that category. So we were not creating a new tax. We were not creating a new fee. We were not asking for any new money. This was existing money that we
so the consumer would not be asked to pay more for ammunition or shotgun or anything.
Absolutely not.
They'd still pay the 7%.
They're still
but
paying.
instead of that 7% rolling, or instead of that $30 million going directly into the general fund, you would divert.
We would divert the first year. We would divert $888,000 a month from the from that category. So about $10 million for the first year out of that $30 million. So there's no new money. It's money that the sportsmen and the conservationists across the state are already paying when they buy shotguns, ammunition, kayaks, and stuff like that. So, but let's go a step further on that. That's where the diversion. That was the meat of the bill. We had a dedicated revenue source that would go forward from here on. That we could do. Let me throw in at this point right now, Paul. I'm going to just throw, and I know you're not a numbers guy. We've talked about that before, but let me tell you what other states around us are doing. And this is on dedicated conservation funding. Texas, $200 million. Arkansas, $45 million. Tennessee, $25 million. Alabama, $15 million. Georgia, $20 million. Florida, $100 million. South Carolina, $12 million. North Carolina, $35 million. Louisiana, 0. Mississippi, 0. Now, Paul,
this is their funding before match.
Well, that's their funding before match. That's not taking into account the match that you can draw down from Pittman Robertson funds and Dingle Johnson funds, and Paul, that's funds that manufacturers pay, excise taxes that manufacturers pay, and that comes down.
But the lieutenant governor was all with me, and he said we haven't used the Pittman Robertson fund as we should, as he did when he was Secretary of State. But again, in the revised bill, he's talking about going to the legislature for some of those dollars, and you would have to use those dollars still for the matching. So how are we any better off?
We're not. Look, let me tell you, I chaired wildlife for 8 years in the House, and that was one of the. I still love that area. I still love that arena. I still handle the Department of Wildlife's budget in the House. And I really learned about the drawdown of these funds by working with Dr. Polis and his staff out there, and what it means for every license. If you buy a sportsman's license in Mississippi now, $45, we're going to get back from the federal government on that. We're going to get back $120 off that $45 license, and that's what the Pittman Robinson drawdown funds are. So we can't look. Those funds are coming in. They are paid by the sportsmen. They're going right now. The biggest part of the Pittman Robinson funds are going to the Department of Wildlife. We can't just pull $10 million from Pittman Robinson from the Department of Wildlife. That would decimate their budget. We can't do that.
So one of the things he was saying, instead of the diversion, we'll have a different mechanism. So in the bill, there was zero balance to go into the fund.
Yeah, it would be subject to an annual appropriation by the legislature.
Which you may or may not get.
I know how annual appropriations by the legislature go.
Yes. So here's another thing, and we were talking about this yesterday with some folks. Reminds me of the mental health clinics that were established. They were funded, but they were never manned. And I go back to that one because it is a good. This could set up the board.
Yeah.
Under his bill, if it was accepted by the House, you would set up the board. You would have a 1%
expense administrative cost. Right.
Well, the administrative cost was 3%.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So it's at 1%.
Right.
And I have no idea 1% of what.
I guess the annual appropriation. If we give them $100,000, they're going to have 1% of that to operate.
And then 3% of the appropriations for the administration.
Right, for the administration of it. But
and then if there's no money in the kitty, so what are you administrating?
I don't know. That's what the bill does. That's what the revised.
So you're telling me, as far as the House is concerned, you doubt very seriously they'll consider that?
Well, I can speak with almost 100% certainty. We will not consider the Senate bill as it came over. It's got a reverse repealer in it, which means the bill would die before we adjourn. So we're going to go to conference on it. We're going to. Is
that the only unacceptable, or let's talk about the private part?
Well, no. So let's talk about the other things that are number one, the diversion. You got to have money to do this, Paul. You got to have money to do this. Let's talk about a minute for the Senate removed private projects. Private land projects. Well, let me tell you the fallacy in that. Okay, when we talk about private projects, let's talk about. Let's talk about dollars that come from the Farm Bill that go directly to farmers for private projects. Let's talk about NRCS projects that are public dollars that go to people to build ponds, build lakes, and do soil conservation on the property. Let's talk about CRP. Let's talk about public dollars going to private landowners for CRP payments. Let's talk about titling funds, public dollars going to private owners to preserve, coastal areas that have been used to buy different things under the same scenario.
I want to continue this conversation. Let me ask you one question to qualify that, though.
Okay.
Are any of those just aforementioned items that you just mentioned, are those state tax dollars or federal?
Most of those are federal tax dollars.
All right, let me get back to this because we don't have a lot of time here. Scott Bounds in the House, Mississippi House Representative, District 44, Chairman, House Public Utilities Committee. I would be remiss not to ask you about everything on tap as far as the Neshoba County Fair. You knew I was going to ask you.
Well, yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope we go and hope everything's going to be okay.
Sure. Well, let me say this. I obviously was going to tag that before I
know you were, so I thought it would be.
But yes, right now we plan to have the fair July 21st to 28th, I think, of the dates.
So everything would be normal as is.
That's the way we're wanting to go.
Well, we're leading that way.
We're leaning that way.
Even though we may be Neanderthal in doing that, we're leading that way. All right, let's go back to the second part of this. The second part of this, the objections apparently in the House are going to be to the diversion versus non-diversion, and secondarily the private part of that. So was it also nonprofits? Private nonprofits?
Yeah, nonprofits and NGOs, and that includes people like Ducks Unlimited, Nature Conservancy,
so
Wildlife
you're saying that there's some, maybe not hypocrisy, but some precedent set as far as private lands in the past.
Well, yeah. So I'm going to give you a good example. We have used one of the most diamonds in the rough WMAs, the Phil Bryant WMA that we acquired back in 18 or 19. That was a public-private partnership with the Nature Conservancy. Nature Conservancy put forward the biggest part of that money, and the state put some forward too, but it went to for the good or the public good, and so. But we're talking about, again, Paul, when you're talking about for private. It's when you're talking about public dollars for private use. Here again, that happens every year annually in the Farm Bill, NRC.
But it doesn't happen with state dollars. It happens mostly with federal dollars.
With federal dollars.
Let me ask you this, because one of the conversations I've had with several people who ask me about it, and it's, let's just say you've got a farmer who's got 5,000 acres of land, and he's a pretty big farmer. He has some wetlands out there, and he wants to ingratiate that. And as far as his duck hunting that he has, and I mean it's not open to the public, but he has it. It would help the duck population.
Absolutely.
Could he take some of that money from taxpayers and use it there?
He could. I mean, it's done. That's done through. And
that's where some of the objections are.
I understand, but it's done all over the country with Ducks Unlimited. I mean, Ducks Unlimited doesn't just own land everywhere.
I understand
all over the country. Yeah. So they could, but here again, you've got a board that would be set up that would be evaluating according to the criteria of the legislation the things that it could be used for, and so yes, it could. It could be used for that.
When you have limited dollars, though, then you're looking at bike trails where everybody could use, or parks and things such as that. Then, because $10 million, when you start talking about that, even with the possibility of matching, you could expend that very quickly.
You could expend it very quickly, and here again, I don't want to deflect from the public good everything that this legislation could accomplish, and you hit on it real well. The bike trails, the shooting ranges, the walking trails, the archery, yeah,
all of
it's
that.
Just all kind of things that cities, counties, that there is no revenue stream for right now. The Department of Wildlife has some pass-through money every year, very small, very competitive grants, what we call trails grants. I mean, I think the last year I was chairman, there was maybe like $600,000 in that, which is very, very small amount of money.
Would the same example play, and I just ask you this so I can get it from you and I'll know it's accurate, would the same example play out is if on hunting land, if they wanted to buy some hunting land, and a farmer wanted to use $70,000 to plant trees.
Absolutely.
To increase the deer population on his private land.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here again, you have all kind of conservation aspect programs throughout NRCS, and I know you're talking about federal dollars, but here again, it's the same concept.
Well, I'm talking about state dollars.
Well, but this would be state dollars. But I'm telling you, federal dollars are being used for the same thing anyway.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, we're talking state dollars.
We're talking state dollars, but. I don't want to the good that comes out of the programs that I have mentioned, the Tidelands, the NRCS, the Farm Bill, that can be done at the same level at the state level, Paul.
Yep.
It's a proven concept that works. Let me say this, Paul. I mentioned earlier that we're glad that the bill is before the Senate. Okay, we're glad to be, and we hope the Senate has a chance to vote on it, and I think they will. It's made it to the Senate calendar. We're ready to continue this conversation, hopefully reach a compromise. I know what our position going into conference will be the House position. The bill is passed, but look, this business, we compromise. We find ways to make things work, and that's what we want to try to do on this.
Would the same be said as far as the income tax bill?
Well, I think there are conversations, and I'm not a part of those conversations, but I think there are very in-depth conversations happening right now between the leadership in the two chambers on the income tax bill. I think the income tax elimination is good policy. I do. I think for the long-term growth of the state.
But you know for sure that conversation is happening.
Those conversations.
Do you know for sure if the governor is part of that?
I do not know. I cannot answer that. But I do think that elimination of the income tax is good policy. How we get there is another thing. And that's the way this process works.
You heard the interview with, or some parts of the interview with the lieutenant governor, some of the numbers on there. He said 2.6 or 2.8 billion was, and I forgot exactly what it was. I may be off a little. Was the money that needed to be replaced from the current amount that we had to fill that void. In other words, we collect that much,
right?
And I think you guys are using 1.9, so there is a pretty big gap in what needs to be filled.
Yeah, 1.9 is the figure that the House proposal has worked off of, and the revenues that would have to be replaced we're looking at 1.9 billion on the figures that we have, that we are working off of.
And he said he has his economist and some people that report is going to be issued. I guess, and we still have time to do that.
Oh yeah. We still have time to do that. It's still we're here for probably another month. 3.5 weeks something. So there's still time to work on that. So.
It would be, and this will play into our conversation coming up in the next one with Marcy Croft, but. You wonder where we would be with the tax money that would have come in from medical marijuana.
Right, yeah. And right now, unless there is something that changes on that, as well as I do, because we're not going to realize any tax dollars from that at all. And,
out of your committee, and again, we're speaking with Scott Bounds, chairman of the Public Utilities Committee. Anything still alive in your committee?
Yeah, we've got a significant piece of legislation still alive. The Mississippi. I forget the name of it. But anyway, what it would do would allow investor-owned utilities to offer their unused capacity and fiber infrastructure for broadband access throughout rural Mississippi.
How many of those do we have, those entities that are private-owned?
This bill would encompass just Mississippi Power and Entergy.
Okay.
Mississippi Power and Entergy. And real quick, they have unused fiber capacity within their electrical system, and so trying to get policy to where or put policy together that we would allow them to use at least that fiber to a broadband provider.
Bill that's near and dear to all of us are the alcohol bills, of course, and how many of those are still living? The one that I did see was House Bill 1135 and Senate Bill 2804 allowing home delivery of beer, wine, and liquor. But somewhere in there was to redo the whole structure in the private-public.
Right.
Is that still living?
I think both of those bills are still alive.
They're still alive?
Yeah. I'm just sort of out of tune with all of that, with all the other going on. But I want to go back to 1231, Paul, real quick. I mean,
Sure.
75% of the people in this state polled over course of a poll back in 2015, 75% of the people approved this kind of method of doing this. Conservation, hunting, fishing, all of that. This is Mississippi values. This is what's dear to Mississippi citizens, and when you look at, again, what the surrounding states are doing, we don't want to be last, Let's get ahead of Louisiana on this. Right now, we don't have anything. I gave you the figures, a few moments ago in the last segment on what the other states are doing. This is something the citizens want. This is something that we think we had a good position in the House, a good piece of legislation in the House. Senate has changed it up. It's for the calendar. It's going to go to conference. We want to go to conference. We want to have a good conversation with the Senate, find a compromise on this, and this is what benefits the taxpayers.
It's always good to have this microphone and cover so much of an area because you hear from so many different people, and I think there's a lot of confusion because we made the state aware of how bad our state park systems were in and how important they are. Yeah. And then we start talking about this, and they felt like this would be an avenue to get it done. And then they hear about these extraneous things and we know it's not a lot of money. And then we hear about the squabble between the two, and we hope there's an outcome. And I think everybody in the House and Senate wants to do the right thing.
We want to do the right thing. We're going to find a compromise.
They're all
on
Mississippians.
This. All Mississippians. And look, this will help the parks, too. Let me close on that, Paul. This will be an opportunity to help the parks.